March 20th, 1988. A green and gold Ford Mustang sits abandoned in a Dallas shopping center parking lot. The doors are locked. Two winter coats rest on the stereo inside. But the two teenage girls who drove there, gone, vanished, without a single trace. This is the story of Stacie Madison and Susan Smalley, two best friends who disappeared into thin air, leaving behind only questions that remain unanswered to this day. Carrollton, Texas, spring of 1988. It was a time of big hair, mixtapes, and weekend hangouts. For 17-year-old Stacie Madison and 18-year-old Susan Smalley, life was typical for teenagers in suburban America. They were best friends, students at Newman High School, and by all accounts, responsible young women. Stacie had recently purchased her pride and joy, a 1967 Ford Mustang in green and gold. She loved that car. Susan worked at a local restaurant and was known for her reliability and warm personality. Neither girl had a history of running away. Neither had ever been in serious trouble. But on the night of March 19th, 1988, something happened that would change everything. The girls left their homes, telling their families they'd be back soon. They never returned, and more than 30 decades later, their families are still searching for answers. Let's go back to March 19th. It was a Saturday. Spring break was coming to an end, and the girls planned to spend one last evening together before returning to school on Monday. That afternoon, Stacie's mother, Ida, was helping her daughter perm her hair at home, but Ida noticed something unusual. Stacie seemed hesitant about staying overnight at Susan's house. She couldn't explain why. She just had a feeling. But eventually, Stacie decided to go anyway. Later that evening, Susan's mother left for a date, leaving the two girls alone at Susan's house. At 12:01 a.m., just after midnight, a long-distance phone call was made from Susan's home. Investigators later discovered this call in phone records, but to this day, no one knows who the girls called or why. At some point during the night or early morning hours, Stacie and Susan drove to an apartment in Arlington, about 30 minutes away. Several young men were there, and a small gathering was taking place. Witnesses later told police that alcohol and marijuana were present, but that Stacie and Susan appeared sober and weren't participating heavily in the party. The girls stayed for a while, then told the group they might come back later. They walked out the door, got into Stacie's Mustang, and drove away. It was the last time those young men, or anyone, would see them alive. Investigators were able to piece together a few more stops the girls made that night. At one point, they visited a 7-Eleven convenience store. A clerk remembered one of the girls attempting to buy alcohol, but being refused because she didn't have proper identification. The girls left empty-handed. Their final confirmed sighting was at a steak and ale restaurant in Dallas. Susan went inside and had a brief conversation with a coworker. Stacie stayed in the Mustang, waiting in the parking lot. After a few minutes, Susan returned to the car. The green and gold Mustang pulled out of the parking lot and disappeared into the night. That was it, the last confirmed sighting of Stacie Madison and Susan Smalley. Sunday morning, March 20th. Both mothers woke up expecting their daughters to be home, but neither girl had returned. Phone calls went unanswered. Hours passed. Worry turned to panic. By Monday, when the girls didn't show up for school, their families knew something was seriously wrong. Stacie and Susan were responsible. They didn't just vanish. This wasn't like them. The mothers began searching, driving through neighborhoods, calling friends, checking parking lots. And then they found it. Stacie's green and gold Mustang parked in a shopping center lot on Forest Lane in Dallas. The car was locked. Peering through the windows, they could see two coats draped over the stereo, coats the girls had been wearing, but their purses were gone, and the girls themselves, nowhere to be found. When police were called, they initially treated the case as a possible runaway situation, but the families insisted these were not runaways. Something terrible had happened. Detectives quickly got to work. They retraced the girls' steps, interviewing everyone who had seen them that night. The young men from the Arlington apartment were questioned extensively. Their stories were consistent. The girls had visited, stayed briefly, and left. There was no indication of foul play at that location. But investigators uncovered another lead. Stacie had a boyfriend named Kevin. Friends described him as jealous and possessive. Susan's mother had noticed bruises on Stacie's arms in the weeks before her disappearance. Was their relationship troubled? Had it turned violent? Years later, Kevin's girlfriend at the time came forward with a disturbing claim. She alleged that Kevin had confessed to killing both girls and burying their bodies in a cemetery. Police took the tip seriously. They searched the cemetery. They brought in cadaver dogs and ground-penetrating equipment. They found nothing. Kevin was also given a polygraph test, and despite the suspicions, investigators found no physical evidence linking him to the disappearance. No bodies, no murder weapon, no concrete proof. The case stalled. Leads dried up. The investigation went cold. Over the years, theories have emerged. Some believed the girls may have run away to Padre Island, a popular spring break destination. But there was no evidence they ever made it there. No credit card transactions, no sightings, nothing. Others speculated that a serial killer may have been involved. In the late 1980s, several unsolved cases in the Dallas-Fort Worth area shared similarities, but again, no definitive connections were ever made. The late 80s were also marked by the satanic panic sweeping across America. Some tips to police referenced cult activity or ritual crimes. None of these leads panned out. In more recent years, the families provided DNA samples to CODIS, the National Missing Persons Database. They hoped that if remains were ever found, they could finally have answers. So far, there have been no matches. 37 years have passed. Stacie Madison would be 54 years old today. Susan Smalley would be 55. Their families have never stopped searching. They've never stopped hoping. But the silence is deafening. Stacie and Susan were just teenagers. They had dreams, futures, families that loved them. On the night of March 19, 1988, they left their homes and drove into the darkness, and they were never seen again. What happened to them? Did they meet with foul play? Were they victims of someone they knew or a stranger? Are they out there somewhere, alive, unable to come home? Or did something far more sinister occur that night? The answers remain locked away, hidden in the past, but their families refuse to give up. They still believe that someone, somewhere knows what happened, and they're still waiting for the truth. If you have any information about the disappearance of Stacie Madison and Susan Smalley, please contact the Carrollton Police Department or the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. Even the smallest detail could be the key to finally bringing these girls home. If you found this case compelling, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel, and leave a comment below. What do you think happened to Stacie and Susan? Let's keep their story alive.